Are you under the influence? The quick answer is yes, but we can figure out how to identify it and how to protect yourself from undue influence. I'm Carla McLaren. Welcome to the 5th episode of the Off-Ramp Project. I want to go back to the book that I'm working from, which is called Escaping Utopia. And I wrote it with the internationally renowned cult expert, Janja Lalich. What I brought to Escaping Utopia was my experience growing up in a cult. And this book is about 65 children, people who were born into cults, people who were raised in cults. And we had 39 cults that we looked at, some very famous, some you never heard of in your life. Some were spiritual, some were religious, some were martial arts, some were ways to eat, right? You can make a cult around anything. And I want to go back to what is a cult, because we're talking about the 4 aspects of cultic control. In episode 3, we looked at the transcendent belief system, and that means a belief system that's better than anybody else's belief system. So we're going to create a fabulous group around it. It can be a belief in how to eat. It can be a belief in how to connect yourself with God or gods. It can be a belief in how energy works. It can be a belief in how to manage your sexuality. It can be a belief in anything, but it has to be transcendent, meaning it's better than anything else. It transcends anybody's regular beliefs, right? And it's the best. So we looked at transcendent belief systems. And then in episode 4, we looked at systems of control. How does a group build rules and regulations and organizational structures to say, this is us, those are other people, and this is us, and this is how we know we're us, and this is how we behave as us. In this episode, we're going to look at systems of influence. And influence is the way that the members and the leaders of the cult, or any relationship, there's systems of influence in all human relationships. Some are healthy and some are unhealthy, and we're going to look at that. But the influence is how members, I would guess, influence each other. How the group begins to create a group identity, which is then reinforced by the people within the group. And you can have healthy in-group influence. You can have very unhealthy. You can have toxic in-group influence. But I wanted to go back to what is a cult, because it's so important to be able to call a cult a cult. Now, I've been talking about things that are cultic, that you can have things happening in a group or in a belief system that are leaning cultic, right? But it doesn't have to be a whole cult. Let's see, I was talking about the carnivore online community. These are people who eat only meat and only animal products. Most of them, because they're quite ill and their body has just had it with all carbohydrates, right? So there's a serious reason to be there. And the diet does support a lot of people who would not have been well otherwise, right? It's a worthwhile thing to try if you're just not handling carbohydrates, if you just body's had it, right? It's a worthwhile thing to try. But in all the different online communities I got into, there was a lot of, this is the best diet that's ever existed and all humans should be on it, and carbohydrates are poison, okay? And that's a transcendent belief system, right? So you have to be very careful when you're in kind of extremist eating practices, as I have had to be because my body said I've had it. You have to be careful because the transcendent belief system can very much lean cultic, right? Now, the carnivore diet community isn't a cult. They're not that organized, all right? But it's cultic, all right? So let's look at what a cult is. And this is from Escaping Utopia. A cult is a group or a relationship. It doesn't have to be a big group. It can be a small one. It can be two people. It's a group or relationship that stifles individuality and critical thinking, requires intense commitment and obedience to a person and or an idea, and it restricts or eliminates personal autonomy in favor of the cult's worldview and the leader's wants and needs. Now, the reason that, we're on page 5, we're in the introduction of this book. The reason that Yanya and I felt so strongly about saying this is a cult and this is what we mean and this is what it is there's a movement in some parts of the social sciences that people don't want to call things a cult because they think it is rude, right? It's name calling. And so what they're doing is working on what they call new religious movements. And there's so much wrong with that. If we're talking about cults, if you want to study new religious movements, you go do that. I'm going to support you. I'm going to read your studies. I'm going to read your book because that's fascinating. But to call a cult a new religious movement makes 3 huge mistakes. 1, it suggests that all cults are religious. That's not true. 2, it suggests that all new religions are cults. That's not true. And it suggests that all religions that are old started out as cults, right? So that's not true. So if you don't want to say the word cult and you hide in this concept of the new religious movement, you are actually endangering the people who are in cults that have no religious tone to them at all, right? The carnivore movement. That's not religious, although people have kind of a religious adherence to the concept. But those people and people who are in, martial arts cults or people who are in cults that are around how we do sexuality, and there's a lot of those are going to be missed. And if you are afraid of the word cult, you need to do some work with yourself, because if you call it a new religious movement, you are endangering the people who are in cults that are old, that are not religious. Okay. So calling it a cult it's not an insult, right? It is a way to say what's happening. And so that we can say to each other, that feels culty. That feels cultic, right? That's a culty cult, right? To be able to talk about this, because a lot of what cults do is kind of secret. It's hidden behind the outside of the cult. So everyone's got their smiley, happy faces, and come to our meeting, and you can learn more about how to be a human. And we're so happy, and I'm now making $50,000 a month because blah blah blah, right? If you don't know what a cult is, if you don't have any idea what's happening, you are vulnerable, right? And we don't want that. We don't want you to be vulnerable. We want you to be well and well cared for and well protected in this very difficult world. The systems of influence, which is what we're looking at this episode, are everywhere. Every human relationship, every aspect of human communication has some level of influence in it. And that's not evil, that's not cultic, that's not dangerous. It's how we engage with each other. All advertising and marketing is an attempt to influence you, right? Any way that people talk to you when you're misbehaving is an attempt to influence you. You can have harsh influence with punishments in it, or you can have gentle influence where someone says to the baby, "Is that what you want to do with the kitty right now?" Right? And the baby says, I'm going to think about that for a minute, right? The adult is influencing the baby to think about something more than their need to pull the cat's tail, right? And wouldn't that be funny? We influence each other all the time. And one of the things we understand now about emotions is we co-regulate each other's emotions all the time. So we are influencing and being influenced constantly. The time that it is confusing and endangering is when the influence is done in the service to something other than your own best interests or the interests of the people you love and care for. For instance, I talked in episode 2 about the attention economy and the problem with capitalism having no regulations around it at this point. It has some, but is not as much as it needs. Capitalism is a very powerful thing, and all powerful things can be powerful for good or evil, and or happiness and despair. Because capitalism, which I'm calling end stage capitalism because it's grown like a cancer, capitalism treats everything as capital, and it treats everything as something to be sold. Our attention in the attention economy is up for grabs. And so most social media is high influence, trying to control you, trying to manipulate you into watching this or doing that, because how long you watch is where the money comes from, right? So your attention has been monetized. Your attention is a part of someone else's capital. If you don't know that, right? If you do, you get to make decisions as a living, breathing human person and not a piece of monetized attention, yeah? So if you go on social media, watch what emotions are being thrown at you, what emotions people want you to feel, how they continue to grab your emotions after you've started watching for 5 to 10 seconds. Watch what's happening to your emotional system as the ads and the constant noise of social media comes at you. Advertisements do the same thing. You know, you're watching your show. Remember back when we used to watch shows with commercials in them? But you're watching your show and the show gets to a little bit of a climax point, and then you're kind of, I need to tune back in, but now there's these commercials, and the commercials have, 20, 30, 60 seconds to grab you and to hold you, right? So that influence, that manipulation is constant in our lives. And if you're a writer or doing any kind of thing on the internet where you're trying to get your voice out there, you are told by marketers how to grab people, how to manipulate them, how to influence them, how to, though they won't say it, how to jack into their emotional system and get them to do what you want to do. Okay? So there is influence happening all the time now, all the time. I think, who did I read saying that back in, 1925, people might see 10, 12, 15 ads a day if they're walking around town or listening to the radio. They might see or hear that many. And now I think it's up to the 5 billion a day. I'm kidding. But it's certainly in the hundreds. And so we're getting kind of battered constantly by attempts to influence and manipulate us, right? And marketers and advertisers have learned how to do it. They've learned what works. That's what those A/B tests are about. If you've ever been told how to do an A/B test, you send out one newsletter with, a title that is mostly just about the subject, and then you send one that has more of a kick to it, like 5 secrets to whatever. Right? And you see which one is opened. And people tend to, after an A/B test, go with the one that got more opens, got more clicks, got more eyes on it, because that's where the money is. Yeah. So influence is constant, and it can be healthy and supportive and empathic and ethical, or it can be the other way. Yeah. So when we look at cults and how their systems of influence work, we want to look at healthy versus unhealthy ways to influence people, because we're always influencing people. I'm influencing you now, but my approach to it is to make an argument without jacking into your emotional system, right? Without giving you FOMO, fear of missing out, by saying what I'm going to tell you, but then never telling you that, and then saying, but I've got a course and it's only, okay, it is $99, but if you act now, it will be $39. Can you believe, right? That's FOMO. That's manipulation. And I don't like it when people try to do that to me. I'm like, if you've got something to sell and it's $99, you stand up and you say that. You don't screw around. If it's really $39, don't tell me that $99, right? That's manipulation. You're trying to influence me and I don't appreciate it. Yeah, this is why I'm not famous, y'all. Okay, here it is. Here it is in a nutshell. I'm not doing it to people. I'm not, right? No. I've been in a cult. I don't want to make one. So let me talk to you first about healthy systems of influence, because influence is not evil. It's what we do. It's how we communicate. It's how we work with each other. It's normal, right? So in a healthy system of influence, I'm reading off of a page that I got from this book. The system helps people feel welcome and important to the group as they are. There's not an expectation that you're going to become someone else. You are welcome. The system encourages healthy community and teamwork and camaraderie, as well as open discussion and debate about group projects, goals, and decisions. You have a voice in a healthy system of influence. It is democratic. Everyone has a voice. Everyone has a vote. No one is more or less important than anybody else. Members are role models for each other, but internal competition is a choice rather than a requirement. So in a healthy system of influence, even in a family, you're not always going to be compared to your sister who is a great artist and she gets all A's, and why are you such a disappointment, right? In a healthy system of influence or a family, you would say, my sister rocks at art and she rocks at getting A's in school. And I'm not like that, but oh my gosh, can I ride a unicycle? Do you know what I mean? It's like, your sister's accomplishments don't have to take away from yours. You don't have to be in competition in a healthy system or a healthy family. Individual hard work and excellence are celebrated and are attributed to the individual. In an unhealthy system, anything good that happens to you will be attributed to the system, right? Well, this family gets straight A's, right? And it wipes out your sister's entire work history, right? In a healthy family, it's like your sister is doing such hard work and we're really proud of her and we're proud of your unicycle skills. I could never ride a unicycle, so clearly this is a part of a dream of mine. The group encourages self-awareness and personal responsibility, but does not require public self-exposure. Public self-exposure is reporting on yourself. And in very unhealthy systems, people are rewarded in a kind of a weird way for constantly being hypervigilant about their own behavior. They would constantly be telling on themselves and others. And what that does is it creates a kind of a continual sense of shame, which is a beautiful emotion unless it's used against you. Your internal shame would say, oh, I need to call myself out for this thing, and I need to make amends, and I need to fix it, right? Unhealthy forms of shame that are put on you by an unhealthy system would mean that you would need to talk about your transgressions and your misdoings in a shame-ridden way of your head down and you're such a failure and you need help and support because you're such a loser. I don't want to see that. An unhealthy system would require that. A healthy system would not, right? The system supports privacy, self-respect, independence, and kindness. In unhealthy systems, you don't get a lot of privacy. People are up in your business all the time. They have auditing sessions and critique sessions, and you don't have the ownership and the agency over your own soul and your own mistakes and your own sense of needing to do things in a different way. You're always on stage in an unhealthy system of influence. Communication is direct and open, and the secret keeping is discouraged. Families can be this way too. Have you been in a family? I have, where the problems between the people are never spoken, and they gossip in unethical and unempathic ways to the third party, and then the story gets changed, and the person who did the thing, whatever the thing was, never gets a chance to hear openly what happened. And instead, the whole family system gets toxic. Think of this moved out to a larger group where the whole thing is like that. It is exhausting. It is an exhausting place to be. And you don't grow as a person in your relationships in a group or in a family like that. You may sort of harden into this kind of, well, I don't care, right? You may lose your connection to your ability to relate appropriately because nobody's relating appropriately to you. The communication isn't open, and you can't get the information you need. And secrets are being kept, right? When I have a beef with you and I don't know how to talk to you and I don't know what to do, and I go and I talk to my friend Jennifer about it, I'm keeping a secret. And now I'm roping Jennifer into it, right? Now Jennifer's keeping a secret, which is a terrible thing for me to do to Jennifer, right? That's inappropriate, what I'm doing. And so in an unhealthy system of influence, an unhealthy cultic family or relationship or group, that kind of unclear, dishonest secret keeping is done all the time. It's done all the time. And if you're misbehaving, you may not even know it because no one will talk to you. It's a terrible way to live. Don't do it. Members in a healthy system are not required to spy on or report on others. How would that be? Members have the right to challenge the ways that group unity is being achieved. Yeah. I mean, people would have to know how the group unity is being achieved. They would have to understand systems of influence, and that's why we're talking about it right now. But can you imagine in an unhealthy family saying, I don't want to create a family cohesion. I don't want to create a family grouping around us not liking Uncle Bill. That doesn't feel like a good way for us to gather together. You know, if anybody could even say that. In a healthy system, people would go, oh my gosh, we are doing that, and let us fix our problem, right? In an unhealthy group, you couldn't even start that sentence. You couldn't even start that sentence. In an unhealthy family, nobody wants to know what you think, especially if you're challenging the way we've decided things are and Uncle Bill is out, right? Striving for excellence may be a group value, but the demands are not harsh and people are not penalized for failing. That's a lot. I mean, that would be a beautiful, healthy system. If you hold this sense of excellence, but it's not cruel, it's not impossible, it's not mean-spirited, it's not exclusionary. That's beautiful. Dedication may be a group value, but the group makes room for casual members. So let's say you were in a healthy carnivore group where the people who are very ill need to just eat meat and water and salt. That's all they can manage. Those people are going to welcome the people who just kind of want to try it out. It's like, I think I don't do well with carbohydrates, but I don't know. And we're like, come and try it. Come and try it. And if people say, I'm not doing well, we're going to say, then you're probably okay with carbohydrates. Here's a list of the ones that many of us have been found to be the least trouble. If we need to do some kind of carbohydrate, right? You don't see that in a lot of groups. I've found a number of Facebook groups with carnivores who are not cultic, and it's a wonderful thing. And it's okay for people to be visiting. It's okay for tourists to come into those groups and go, what is it y'all are doing? And we share it, and we don't go on that this is the proper human diet. It's a transcendent belief system. It's the best diet in the world. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Everybody's an individual. The system incorporates fairness, concern for individuals, and acceptance of outsiders. So we're not going to see any kind of behavior about Uncle Bill not being a part of this family, right? We are going to see fairness and acceptance. The group provides a healthy sense of belonging and realistic levels of commitment. You don't belong to this group because you're perfect. You belong because you belong. That's cool. The group does not require people to reinvent themselves or dedicate their lives to the cause. You don't have to buy the t-shirt. You don't have to buy the coffee mug. You don't have to sign up for the second level of whatever it is, right? You don't have to agree to remove parts of your, functional human organism to fit into the group. Leaders and special insiders are not above the rules, and they can be challenged if they disrupt or ignore the group norms. You can say to the boss, hey, I thought we weren't bringing our dogs to work unless they were, they knew not to pee on the carpet, right? Your dog's peeing on the carpet. And you're not going to get fired. And you could actually go into the office and say that out loud, right? Many workplaces, I wrote a book called, what is it called? The something of emotions at work. I can't even remember. It's a beautiful book. Many workplaces are cultic because there's this attempt to control people and make them work in some belief systems about how people work and how to get them to work. There's an idea that people don't want to work and you have to manipulate and influence them constantly. So the power of emotions at work, for goodness sake, that's the name of the book, okay? That in many cases, people have a pretty crappy understanding of human nature, and the nature of humans is to want to work and to want to work hard and feel proud of themselves for the work they've done. That's how people really are underneath it. But you can ruin people by forcing them to work and by treating them as cogs in a machine. You can ruin people if you have a hierarchical system where there's a hierarchy of human worth, like these are the workers not worth much, these are the managers very hard working, still not worth very much, and these are the exalted owners of the business, these are the people. And in the hierarchical system, a lot of times the people at the top can break any rule they want and no one can challenge them. No one. And that is ugly. That's a system of influence where people are being silenced, where the whole structure is silencing them. So it's kind of a system of control from the previous episode, where the hierarchy is a system that creates a hierarchy of worth of human beings. And I never want to see that. Okay, that's cultic. So the system is also helping members develop a unified group identity that does not erase their own identity. So if you come into a healthy carnivore group, you can be a person who can eat bacon or whatever, and people aren't going to pull you into line. We don't eat bacon here, right? They don't make you into something that you're not. They don't require that you become something that you're not. Yeah. So When a system is healthy, it supports group identity and individual identity equally. Healthy systems of influence focus on creating group cohesion that is supportive for the group and for the individuals within it. Healthy influence creates a sense of belonging, dedication that's not toxic, friendliness, and teamwork. It can help people reach goals that they couldn't achieve on their own. Groups that are healthy are beautiful. They're healing. They're wonderful for you. They make the world go round. So let's look at unhealthy systems of influence. And there will be some in every group and family that you can think of. There will be some unhealthy bits of this because people don't know, right? People don't know this information unless they studied it. The systems of influence just feel like this is how life is. It just feels like, well, this is my family. This is this workplace. This is how this is, instead of being able to articulate and look at where the problems are in the system so that maybe you and people who care can begin to change those. Just like we say, I don't want to have our family unity be built on Uncle Bill being not okay. I would like us to have a different family unity. In a healthy family system, the family will call themselves out and will be like, all right, we need to fix this because we didn't realize that it was ugly. In an unhealthy system, you can't make that observation, right? Your brain doesn't belong to you in an unhealthy system. Your communication doesn't belong to you. Your individuality does not matter in an unhealthy system. So here's a list of unhealthy systems of influence. These are signs and aspects. There is constant pressure for people to change and conform, right? There is a constant, endless call for you to be a member of the group who did buy the t-shirt, did buy the coffee mug, did go into the second level of whatever course it was. Now you're in the third level. Now you're in the fifth level. Now you've bought not just the t-shirt, but the blazer, right? Not just the coffee mug, but the entire set of plates, right? You are fully dedicated. Also, you've partially lost your own self. Just thought you should know. The push for change comes from above. The needs or ideas of members are not important. We see this in a lot of places, and it's a part of a hierarchy, right? Hierarchies are important for business processes. They are important not to be, let me say this, not to be squashed under the top of human souls. Hierarchies are for things, not people. In an unhealthy system of influence, there's a hierarchy. And it's a hierarchy of worth, who you are and what's important about you and how many rules you can break really depends on your place in the hierarchy. And that's not okay. That's a way to know that there's trouble in the system. The system of influence is built into the powerful sense of community, this deep closeness, and there is a deep closeness in cults. There is. I've been there, right? It's supportive to members and also a way for the group to pry into and control the members' private lives. In my cult, it started out wonderful, and then they were telling us how to dress, how to eat, how or if we could have sex. You know, they were big on marriages, and they're big on deep commitments, and they're big on heterosexuality. Yeah. That wasn't their business, y'all. That was not their business. But in that cult, in that group, they made it their business. Loyalty to family or friends is discouraged. All loyalty must be focused on the group and the leader. And I got kicked out of my cult when I was 17 because I asked questions. And also I was very much my own self, and that I was breaking the cult apart by being myself, and they had to kick me out. And my friends and family, well, actually I lost, I think, almost all of my friends. They weren't my friends, they were my cult mates. And now that I'm not in the cult, then I'm nothing to them. My family didn't let me down. But they weren't allowed to share any cult, information with me. And I wasn't allowed to go back into the cult building. I'm sure my family took some heat for that, but good, right? Good. I'm proud of them. All loyalty must be focused on the group and the leader. Yeah. So the group is more important than I was. The group is more important, and the leader is more important than anyone in a cult. That's just a fact. This is a really powerful one. Gossip, informal communication, and off-topic conversations may be forbidden. You will see this in many workplaces. When I go into a workplace and there's a no gossip rule, I'm like, all right, there's some serious trouble in this group. Now, gossip has, a terrible connotation. We think of it as a terrible behavior. But gossip, anthropologists and sociologists understand that gossip is simply this. It's informal communication. It is the communication that has not come down in a hierarchical way. It is a way that we tell each other things that are not said out in the open. They're not written on any rule book. Gossip is the way that we transmit informal communication to each other. Gossip is found in all cultures, in all genders, at all ages. Men gossip. Women get called the gossips, right? The fishwives. But everyone requires informal communication. I created a practice called ethical empathic gossip so that people could take advantage of the really priceless communication process of gossip without doing what has made gossip into a toxic thing. This gossip is ethical first, it's empathic second, and then it's gossip. I think all of us have been involved in unethical, unempathic gossip. And I understand people wanting to shut that down, but you can't shut down gossip. It's informal communication. Let me give you an example. I found out through gossip, and it was ethical, it was empathic, that Dave's mom is in the hospital. We're at work. I know that there is a really important project due on Friday. I saw Dave this morning. He looked the same to me, and he wasn't trying to take any time off. But I've got this information now through gossip. It's the only way I could have gotten it. Dave didn't tell me. It's not up on, there's no bullet points saying what's going on with Dave today, right? This was a crucial piece of information that now I can go to Dave without saying what I know and saying, so we've got this thing due on Friday, and let me know if there's anything I can pick up or anything I can do to support it because I've got some extra time today. Now, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I'm highly empathic, so I'm going to be figuring out ways to support people. This would leave an opening for Dave to tell me what's going on. Or he may not. He may just be very interior about this situation. And thank goodness for the person who gossiped to me. Gossip is informal communication. I cannot get it any other way, right? It's crucial information. And so I can go to Dave, and then maybe he'll tell me what's going on. Maybe he'll say, oh, thank goodness. Could you pick up this part and that part? I'm so glad you came in today. And he doesn't have to tell me anything, but I've been able to utilize that gossip, that crucial informal information, in order to support the business, to support Dave, to support myself, to support the entire social structure, right? In an unhealthy system, that information is shut down. There's secret keeping. So I may go to Dave in this unhealthy workplace and say, we got to get it on Friday. We got to get this thing on Friday. Where are you with it? Right? He may lash out at me. He may crumble. He may miss his deadline, right? I won't have the information I need, and I won't have the empathy and ethics I need to be a functional member of a functional social group, right? Gossip is crucial, but it needs to be ethical and empathic gossip, right? So I fixed gossip, y'all, fixed it because it's so important. And in my workplace book, The Power of Emotions at Work, who would forget that title? I teach ethical empathic gossip. Yeah. It's crucial. It's crucial for any relationship you have. And the reason I created it was for my family, because they're the people who taught me to never speak to the person that I was having a trouble with and go to as a third party and create all kinds of trouble. And the person never learns anything and the relationships fall apart. Ethical empathic gossip is what I wish I had when I was a child. And I'm so glad I have it now. So back to the list, because I went off on a gossip tangent. Members have no privacy, and their actions, behaviors, emotions, and even thoughts are monitored, right? Which that monitoring needs to happen through being ratted out, being finked on, and ratting yourself out in public situations. And in not so much in my cult, but in some cults, it gets to the place where it's almost competitive. How much I can rat myself out and tell on myself and expose myself, right? I can get points for losing my privacy and my dignity in this group, right? And wow, that sets you up. That sets you up. The leader almost doesn't have to do anything at that point. If I am dehumanizing myself, the leader's got it made, right? I am fully on board with the dehumanization of Carla in this system, right? I'm a mess, but within that cultic system of influence, I'm raised up a little bit, right? As the most self-disclosing person, whatever. Members will soon internalize the pressure to conform, and here we go. They will obediently monitor and report on their own behavior, right? Of course, they're going to report on others too, but they're going to report on themselves as a way to prove their dedication. Prove it. Instead of, in a healthy system, you don't have to prove it. Just behave well. And if you don't want to behave well, then maybe this isn't the group for you. It's whatever. You don't have to, slice open your own heart and hold it out to the group. Ew. There's a culture of confession that will arise that I was talking about, where you get kudos, you get awards for being the most confessional person. And confessions are public, right? You're displaying it. And punishments are public too. Humiliation is public, right? You will be called out on the carpet. And of course, the leader's behavior is off limits. No one can report on the leader except in gossip, right? Which is why they shut it down. If a social system or a workplace or anybody tries to shut down gossip, I know that there's some serious problems in the system, right? Not in the person who's gossiping, in the system, because people gossip for a reason, right? So if people have a no gossip rule, or a no specific emotion rule, or a no, specific kind of empathy rule, I know, okay, this system needs some serious attention, because there's something very wrong here that people are trying to fix by shutting down the people who can speak to it, right? That's not okay. Like the leader, special people around the leader are protected from any criticism, and they don't have to criticize themselves or expose themselves. They can do no wrong because they're close to the leader. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about the leader, who is a very special kind of untouchable person. And that is terrible for the group, but it's terrible for the ego structure of the leader. It is absolutely terrible for the leader. I have lots of empathy for people who somehow find themselves running a cult, because the cult starts to take on its own weather pattern. It starts to take its own speed, and it is very hard when you're a cult leader to take an off-ramp, right? It's an abusive system to everybody. You would think, oh, the cult leader is, doing great. right? The cult leader has 27 Rolls Royces. That's awesome. Cult leader has sex with anybody that they want to. That is great. No, it's not. No, it's not. That is a group in their lack of health, in their lack of awareness, in their lack of ethics, projecting everything onto a fragile human soul and expecting that person to act out and live out everything for them so they don't have to. Okay, I'm standing up for the cult leader. It's a terrible thing to do to a person. It's an absolutely violent thing to do to a person. And when cult leaders spin out and go absolutely cracker dog, you would say, oh, that person, has this, that, and the other mental illness. And this was community acquired, y'all. They started out a little troubled, and now it's gone off the rails because of this social structure, because of these systems of influence, because of these systems of control, because of this transcendent belief system. Nobody could challenge it, nobody could question it, and now we've got a whole bunch of damaged people. The leader as much as anyone else. I know that might not be a popular take, but I am a hyper-empathic person, and so I'm gonna see things that other people don't see. All right, welcome. The group may develop its own special language that nobody else can understand. Now, every group of specialization needs their own language, right? If you're gonna program a computer, you need to be able to speak in that language. That's just normal. And people from the outside hearing you would be like, "What are you saying?" Right? And you would say, "Okay, let me move back to English, standard English, and tell you what I'm doing." But every group has a special language and special references and stuff. But just be aware in any group you're in that you don't use that language to feel special about yourself. In some of the groups that I'm in, I was in intermittent fasting groups for a while. That was one of the ways I was trying to deal with what was going on with my digestive system. And there's all these codes, and you have to learn them in the groups. There's OMAD and TMAD and a 16-8 and, all kinds of in language. And, I'm going to Uncle Google and being like, what's OMAD? Oh, it's 1 meal a day. What's TMAD? 2 meals a day, right? What's 16-8? 16 hours fasting, 8 hours eating. But within the group itself, it was so specialized. And I know that when you're writing a lot and when you're dealing with people who understand the same things, you can say TMAD, and everybody's like, yeah, you don't have to spell out 2 meals a day. You just say TMAD. And that's great, but it can mean that outsiders like me are going to have to do a lot more work to understand what the heck is going on. What are the social norms in this group? What is the language? It's important to monitor that. A lot of times groups need to be able to talk about things and not have to write 2 meals a day, right? They need to be able to do that. But just notice if it's becoming exclusionary. That's how you fix that one. Any successes or hard work performed by individuals will be attributed to the group or the leader, while any difficulty or failure will be blamed on individuals. What a great system. The system takes all the kudos and none of the responsibility. Wow, okay. People in the outside world are treated as non-people. This is where the dehumanization comes in. The people on the outside are unenlightened. They don't have our special knowledge. Therefore, they are deluded. They are deluded into thinking that any other way of being or thinking or behaving, that any other way is acceptable. They're delusional, right? And they might even be evil. They might be evil if they don't believe in the way that we do, if they don't vote the way that we do, if they don't dress or eat or have sex the way we do. They might be evil. There's always that, always that possibility. And again, when you're seeing dehumanization of outsiders, you're always looking at trouble within the group. It's cultic behavior, right? It's cultic to project outside and see monsters everywhere. It's also an aspect of just a tremendous amount of pain within the group, a tremendous amount of pain that is not being looked at in any functional way whatsoever. Instead, all of the difficulties are being projected out and splattered out on the outside world. That's not okay. Oh, people on the outside only have value if they can be converted, right? If they can become converts into your group's ideology. And so you'll see a lot of attempts at influence and manipulation when people try to talk you into their worldview. Now, this is something that I see with my friends in the democratic leftist world, is that they would try to talk to Trump supporters in order to get them to not be Trump supporters, right? They would try to talk to them in order to get them to change their political views into something that works for Democrats or leftists. That's cultic. Sorry, but that's cultic. You aren't going to that person with honesty and empathy and ethics. You aren't going there to learn who and what that person is and what is important to them. You're not going there to have an actual, a real relationship. You're not communicating with the intent to be with the person and to connect to that person. You're communicating in order to convert. Okay? That's cultic. And sadly, that is the approach right now for most of my friends, except my friends in Braver Angels, which we'll talk about. Braver Angels brings people together from the left and the right in America and from the red and blue to talk like people, not to convince each other that the other person is wrong or the other person is right. It's to actually have conversations. It's freaking awesome. The group or leader may reinterpret events to verify the group's beliefs, fears, or visions of the future. Everything will be fit into the transcendent belief system. And we see this. Do you remember the 2012 prophecy? I think it was a Mayan prophecy where the world was going to either end or transform into something magical, right? It kept changing. And I wrote something called Why Did You Believe in the End of the World? It's on my website, carlamclaren.com. And I talked about all of the end of world beliefs that have, it's a constant thing. We have had end of the world beliefs since the day the world began, right? It's like, it's going to end at any time, right? And so it's really important if you're in any kind of group to watch out for all of these unhealthy systems of influence, right? And they're in this book. It's a very slender book. I did that on purpose so that it wouldn't be overwhelming to read. To watch any groups you're a part of and see if they're carrying any of these systems of influence, if they're turning every possible thing that happens into a part of their own prophecy, their own transcendent belief system, right? Everything old is new again, right? Everything that you could possibly have happen in the world has something to do with us. So in a way, the system itself, the group itself, or the family or the workplace becomes narcissistic. They become self-sealed into looking at themselves as the best thing ever. We've got this, and nobody from within can challenge this because you're going to break it. And what I said before in the systems of control is if you've got this many systems of control and systems of influence, what that tells me is that your belief system is fragile and extremely breakable. It's vulnerable. Your belief system is vulnerable if you need to do this much, right, to protect it from any change or any challenge. If your group needs to have unhealthy systems of influence, unhealthy systems of control and unhealthy transcendent belief systems, there's something wrong with the belief system and it needs to get looked at. Unfortunately, looking at it is not allowed, right? So it's very easy to get trapped in a workplace or a family or a group or a cult because of these systems and this lack of awareness. But I can tell you this, no matter how powerful a cult is, no matter how its systems have been applied, no matter how long it's been going on, it's strong, right? It's strong, but it's not as strong as even one human soul, because people are getting out of these groups every single day. People are waking up and going, I don't have to eat perfectly. I don't have to sing perfectly. I don't have to have sex in this specific way. I don't have to do martial arts in a way that actually hurts my ankle. I don't have to believe in these things. I can go. I'm scared. I don't know where I'm going, but I can go. I know I don't want to do this anymore, right? People are leaving all the time. So if you look at a cultic system and you feel like, I'm just going to throw up my hands, it's too powerful. It's too powerful. Remember the 65 children who left. And many of them left in their teens with no education, no money, no family, nobody on the outside, because every outsider was seen as evil. They had no driver's licenses. They didn't know how to rent a house because they'd never been let out into the world. They didn't know how to make money. They didn't know anything. And they left. They left. They got free. And through this work and their own work, they learned how to free others. And that's the job. When you get free, you become a river through which freedom can flow, right? And that's something to aspire to. That's something, don't create a group around it, right? That's something to celebrate, is the human soul. Forget all these systems, forget all these groups, forget all of the workplaces, right? Who cares? Can they write a book? No. Can they make a movie? No. Are they alive? No. A system isn't alive. A cult isn't alive. A workplace isn't alive, right? We're alive. And we get to make choices no matter what. If you find yourself dealing with a cultic group and you don't have anybody on the outside, because that's the point of cults, is stopping you from having people on the outside and threatening you. If you leave, you're going to leave everyone you love behind, right? That's the point. If you have a chance, go to Uncle Google and type in leaving the name of your group, X the name of your group, EX, and see what comes up. Because if there's been a group, if there's been a situation like this, there's going to be outsiders, there's going to be people who left. And in many cases, they are the most healing group you could join because they know exactly what you went through. So it's X skinheads, leaving JW, X Scientologists, X, Falun Gong, X carnivore, X vegan, X anything where you've been subsumed into a group or a mindset or a transcendent belief system where you've had to become perfectionistic instead of perfect like you already are, right? There's so much help out there, and it's specific. And if it's your family, look into therapy. Look into ways to understand family systems. If it's your relationship, go to a men's center or a women's center. Go to a local support group for LGBTQIA++ people who can support you. There's so much support, right? And there's so many people who left before you did, and they're waiting for you, right? They're waiting for you, saying, come on out here to freedom. It can be scary, but it'll be a scary that you have choices about, right? And you will find who you are separate from the group or the relationship or the workplace. There's always a next step. There's always a next story. There's always an off ramp. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.